Once upon a time, just down the street, lived a cat whose name was Pat. Pat's life was, well, different. Pat didn't always go looking for trouble, but seemed to find it anyway. What was Pat's problem? What was Pat hiding from? On the surface, Pat appeared to have a comfortable, wonderful life. Pat had a good family, and they seemed to be happy together. Pat got all the love and attention a cat could ever want, yet somehow Pat felt different and apart from family and friends. Pat's wonderful life just wasn't wonderful enough for Pat. It started innocently enough, just a drink or two with meals. Drinking, you see, made Pat feel confident and on top of the world. But those feelings just didn't last. And it wasn't long before Pat started sneaking drinks when no one was looking. And even when they were. Pat was becoming obsessed. Pat was either drinking or thinking about drinking, or maybe something more. You see, Pat was curious and wondered what it would be like to use other substances. Pat began to experiment. First one thing, and then another, and yet another. Pat would try anything. It was never enough. And then it was all too much. It wasn't the same old Pat. Pat had become addicted. And this frightened Pat. Many things frighten Pat these days. Too much drinking and using made Pat toss and turn at night. Pat longed for the old days. They had been wonderful after all. Haunted by fears, Pat imagined terrible mice on the ceiling. Heard strange voices in the hall. And saw horrible monsters on the wall. It was pretty scary stuff for a cat. Still, sleep wouldn't come without a drink. The morning brought no relief. Tired and shaky, Pat tried to hang on, but couldn't. The littlest things made Pat angry, not to mention thoughtless and rude. Pat's friends became concerned. Of course, some were more concerned than others. Pat knew something was wrong. A friend who'd had the same problems tried to talk to Pat, but Pat didn't want to talk or listen. If you had problems in a family like mine, you'd drink too, Pat thought. Pat was blaming others, because it's always easier than blaming yourself So the family suffered. And the little one suffered. But most of all, Pat suffered. Why me, Pat thought, but no answers came. So Pat continued to drink, sinking to new depths and ending up in all the wrong places and not remembering getting there. Pat wasn't a bad cat, just a very, very sick cat. Pat began to imagine things, awful, terrible things that might happen to Pat and the cat family. What's the use? There's no way out. They'll be sorry. What am I doing here? What's a nice cat like me doing in a place like this? Please, God, if you're there, get me out of this, and I promise I'll never do it again. What's a couple of drinks? I can drive better after a few drinks than any other cat can drive cold sober. No, no, move, run, get out of the... Oh no, not that. I didn't want that. After the nightmare was over, Pat was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Pat made a brave and difficult decision to seek help. Pat was willing to go to any lengths to find help. And when Pat did, the help was there. After a short time, Pat came home, a wiser and no longer a sad cat. Slowly at first, the family began to be put back together. Pat's good feelings and confidence came back, and this time they were real. Pat was grateful to those who had been there and to friends who had tried to help. And soon, it seemed like only a few weeks, there was a very special occasion for everyone, especially Pat. A one-year birthday celebration, which meant that Pat had been clean and sober without drugs or alcohol for a whole year. Pat's family enjoyed the day too. Yes, for a cat that lives just down the street, Pat's done very well. Pat's life isn't perfect, but it's pretty close. People can find help too. A recovery center can be found anywhere help is available. A hospital or treatment center, a referral agency or self-help group, an employee assistance program or school counselor. Any and each of these is as near as your phone book.